Coming up on this episode, all the latest on Jonathan Kuminga, my thoughts and where the situation stands after some major reports from ESPN on Thursday. Welcome back to the Golden State with Mates podcast. Hope you're all having a good week as we continue to wait for the Golden State Warriors to do something here in free agency. Nearly a month through, well over 3 weeks since the period opened. But we did get some big updates earlier today on Jonathan Kuminga from ESPN's Shams Charania and his new colleague as well, Anthony Slater. It's wild to me. I've been writing some articles this morning, and even just saying ESPN's Anthony Slater feels weird to me. Like, I've spent so long always writing or talking about Anthony Slater of The Athletic, Anthony Slater of The Athletic. Like, been doing that now for quite some time. And now to have to change that to Anthony Slater of ESPN, it feels a bit weird. But congratulations to Slater on his new role, no doubt about that. So we had both of those guys on NBA today, but I thought I'd just go through the article that Slater actually has wrote here in the last and had published here on ESPN in the last couple of hours. So I thought I'd go through the article, just read it a little bit, and also just give my thoughts and takeaways on what is going on here with this Kaminga situation. So let's jump straight into it. First paragraph, restricted free agent Jonathan Kuminga is in no rush to sign the latest contract offers from the Golden State Warriors, he told ESPN's Shams Charania after a Thursday morning workout in Miami. And Kuminga's stalemate with the Warriors has the potential to drag significantly deeper into the offseason as he continues to explore other opportunities. Now, the first big piece of information here says General Manager Mike Dunleavy in the Warriors front office showed an extra level of motivation this week in conversations with Kaminga's agent Aaron Turner, delivering what they believe is a fair offer to bring Kaminga back for a 5th season, despite the rocky 4-year partnership that preceded it. But Kaminga hasn't found anything they presented appealing, he said, so the drawn-out negotiations will remain motionless, likely keeping the Warriors' other off-season business on pause. They're the only NBA team not to sign or trade for a player this summer. Also goes on to say that the Warriors didn't swap contract numbers in the lead-up to free agency, which is a little bit surprising, and that Turner, Kaminga's agent, has been spending much of July searching for sign and trade opportunities, getting the most tangible bites from the Phoenix Suns and Sacramento Kings. So this is basically telling me, and just to finish off another paragraph further down here, they were optimistic about their most recent pitch, but Kaminga didn't take it. His side will continue scouring the league for sign and trade opportunities in hopes that something eventually pops. They also have Golden State's qualifying offer as an option. I'll get into the qualifying offer in a second. The biggest takeaway I've got right now from everything we've heard so far on Thursday is that the Warriors want to keep Jonathan Kuminga. I think that's, and I think that has been speculated for quite some time, but we've also had this idea of, oh, well, if they get something of value back, then they're going to be happy taking it, which they are clearly, like, I think they're open to sign and trade offers, but they're clearly valuing JK to a point where it's going to have to be something pretty significant. And I think the fact, again, that they have shown a concerted effort and that they were optimistic about their most recent pitches and contract offers this week, like, that tells you, I think they've got to a point where it's like, hey, we're clearly not going to get anything of substantial value back. So ultimately, we want to keep this guy. Now, there's still a chance that we bring him back and then we trade him mid-season, but then that's on our terms, right? That's going to be us exploring those options rather than really Kaminga and his camp being the ones that are exploring options right now. So clearly, the Warriors have the plan to bring Jonathan Kuminga back. And as we get into other free agency options here, I think who you've seen the Warriors linked to and who we've heard the Warriors linked to in free agency would also suggest that they are building this roster on the presumption that Jonathan Kuminga will be back. How many of the kind of 6'6" to 6'9" forwards available left in free agency have the Warriors been linked to? I can't name one, like, actually strongly linked to. Now, there's guys like Trey Lyles, Chris Boucher, who I and others have speculated as potential options for the Warriors. Have those guys ever been strongly linked to the Warriors? No. Like, has any other, like, 6'7", 6'8" forward or athletic type like Kaminga? Like, has anyone else been linked to the Warriors? Not that I can. If I'm wrong, let me know, but I don't think so. And so you look again at the guys that have been linked to the Warriors, they're usually guards. And if the Warriors lose Kaminga, then they have a real void in terms of small forward, power forward options in the front court. And therefore, like, I think they are building this roster out in the hope that eventually Kaminga will sign. Eventually, that is the plan, that they will bring him back and have next season, at least start next season with Jonathan Kuminga on the roster. So that's one of the biggest takeaways here, is that the Warriors just want Jonathan Kuminga back. And we as fans, and you guys as fans, like, you know, you can be frustrated about this whole situation. And many people, I'm still seeing people on social media, it's like, okay, just accept the sign trade off. Let's get on with it. Like, stop mucking around. Well, no, like, that might be your opinion, but you have to take into account what the franchise wants. And this is a pretty clear indication, pretty crystal clear plan in place for the Warriors to bring back Jonathan Kuminga and offer him. It sounds like their offer is actually pretty decent, like, based on what, you know, is going on around the league. And again, this sentence here says this has been an ice cold market for restricted free agents because of the lack of cap space around the league. The Warriors anticipated that and believe they've offered Kuminga the highest starting salary currently on the table for it. So they are, like, contract money wise, the Warriors are right there. Like, they are, it might not be, now there's a lot of stuff going on yesterday in regard to, and I've had arguments with this with people, and it's still a source of speculation, I suppose, in terms of the 5-year, $150 million contract, the $30 million per year deal that it was speculated and reported. It was flat out reported that Kaminga turned that down as an extension last off season, obviously leading into the October deadline for restricted, well, for fourth year picks coming into their fourth year. Which Moses Moody obviously got a deal done, and Kaminga didn't. And we've obviously spoken about that a lot. And then his agent, Aaron Turner, kind of went on social media yesterday and clarified that, hey, we never turned out a $30 million per year offer. We're not that dumb, basically. We're smarter than that. So that's interesting, whether that's him trying to save face or whether that's actually true or not. I don't know. Who knows? I suppose we'll just try and take him at his word. But it is also interesting that that guy hasn't literally tweeted for like 2 years. And he came out like right now during the middle of this free agency negotiation to clarify something on the Kaminga side of things. So I thought that was fascinating. But it is like the Warriors want to bring Kaminga back, and they believe, again, that they've offered him the highest starting salary currently on the table for him, which there's no speculation of what that is, but I think we can, and I've spoken about this before, in terms of the money that the Warriors can potentially offer JK while also landing Horford on the taxpayer mid-level, and with a few veteran minimum signings as well, and keeping themselves below the second apron. I would therefore assume that the absolute highest the Warriors can go is like 23, 24 million per year somewhere. I think 25, probably the absolute high-end max. I would struggle to see them going beyond that. And again, so you might be looking at the long rumored 2+1 contract where it's 3 year with a third year player option, and it's something like 3 years 70 or something along those lines, between 3 years 60 and 75. So again, that hasn't been speculated or reported here at all. But if it's the highest starting salary currently on the table for him, and we look at what the Warriors are trying to do here while sticking under the second apron, like, it is around that $22 to $25 million mark, I would assume. The qualifying offer. Let's get into that. So Kaminga has a standing 1 year, $7.9 million offer that the Warriors can no longer rescind. He has until October 1 to accept it. If he goes that route, Kaminga will be willingly giving up a chunk of immediate money, but returning on an expiring deal with an inherent no-trade clause, giving him the highest level of long-term career control he's ever had. It's something his side is considering, sources said. So first of all, so the Warriors can no longer rescind it, which is something we spoke about in terms of, well, Could they just rescind it and try and use the full MLE and break that up? It's something we were talking about, obviously, when Bradley Beal was available. Like, would you rescind the qualifying offer to sign Bradley Beal to the full MLE? He's obviously gone to the Clippers. And anyway, they can't do that. So they can no longer rescind it. So that's actually somewhat noteworthy. But in terms of the qualifying offer, and I've just wrote an article about this, it would be still. I know this says it's the Slater reports here that Kaminga and his camp are considering it, but it would still be totally shocking to me because it is such an enormous risk to take. If you've got an offer on the table that's 20 to 25 million per year for, let's say, at least 3 years, like, again, 2+1, that third year player option, you can lock yourself into that. You know that you will have a guaranteed $60 to $75 million, right? To take that $7.9 million qualifying offer would be such a risk. And to me, I think it's just a threat. It's a leverage play from Kaminga and his side to say, we're considering this, because they want to try and force Golden State's hand into saying, well, it would be an absolute brutal nightmare situation for us to lose Kaminga for nothing in 12 months. So we better take what we can now, right? And instead of having a disgruntled player who can walk for nothing in 12 months, who has a no trade clause, so we couldn't trade him either in that time. So instead of that, we'll just take what we can get now, whether it's Devin Carter, Dario Saric, and a protected first round pick, or whatever the Suns have to offer with Grayson Allen, whatever it may be. Like, I think it's more a threat because it's also very, very risky for Kaminga. Like, it's a threat to the Warriors. It's risky for them, no doubt. It'd be a nightmare situation, but it's also, and I've spoken about this before, as difficult as Kaminga could make it for the Warriors next season on the qualifying offer and coming back as a disgruntled player who has indicated that I'm out of here as soon as this 1 year ends, the Warriors could also say, well, we'll just make it difficult for you as well. We'll either, give you a very limited role, 10, 15 minutes per game, and if you're not impacting, we'll just remove you from the rotation altogether. Even if the Warriors just said, just go away. We don't even want you around the team. Just go away. How does Kaminga, therefore, increase his value to a point where he can make up the money that he's going to lose if he rejects a $20 to $25 million per year offer this offseason and takes the qualifying offer? How does he increase his value to go and get that money again next offseason as an unrestricted free agent? Like, that's why it's an incredibly risky move for him to take. And if I was the Warriors, I'd be double bluffing him and basically saying, all right, you're going to take the qualifying offer? Go for it. We don't believe you will. Like, we think you're using that as a threat, as a leverage play to get us to try and accept a lowball offer from a team that you want to go to. We don't want to accept this offer, and we also don't think you're going to, like, literally give up the money we are offering here to sign the qualifying offer and take that risk. So to me, again, him signing the qualifying offer would be brutal for both parties, and it's why I just think it would be shocking if he and his camp went down that path. I just don't think that is possible, right? Continuing on here, the Warriors, meanwhile, have been very careful not to wrap up any other official personnel business until the Kaminga situation is solved, leaving them as much financial and roster flexibility as possible, considering the unpredictable nature of the situation, which we've spoken about that for ages. They have plotted out some clear plans. The Warriors in search of a veteran stretch shooter at the center position and identified Al Horford as their top target from the outset of free agency. Horford is still said to be mulling retirement, but the Warriors are believed to be the strong favorite to land him once the dust settles. The Warriors also have mutual interest in D'Anthony Melton and Seth Curry as bench options. Sources said Melton made quite the impression in his 6 games with the Warriors last season before tearing an ACL. They like him as a backcourt fit next to Steph Curry and have identified Seth Curry, Steph's brother, as a needed bench shooter with an obvious family tie. All right, so on just moving away from the Kaminga thing here for a second, D'Anthony Melton said, we know the Horford stuff. We know the Melton stuff. Seth Curry, this has been murmured, I suppose, and speculated ever since, was it Monty Poole of NBC Sports Bay Area interviewed Seth and asked him specifically about coming to the Warriors, and Seth seemed fairly open to the idea. He certainly didn't turn it down by any means. So since then, there's been this idea in the back of the mind more than anything that Seth Curry could be an option for the Warriors. But to me, again, it's been in the back of mind more than the forefront of mind, because does it actually, like really from an on-court standpoint, does it make a whole lot of sense? I would argue no, just because of the surplus of guards that the Warriors have. Like, if you're adding Seth Curry and DeAnthony Melton to a roster that already has Steph Curry, Brandon Pajemski, Buddy Hield, like Moses can still play at the 2 if need be. You've just drafted Will Richard, 56 overall. None of these guys, aside from Steph, are point guards, which is why like they've also been linked to Malcolm Brogdon. Monty Poole also reported yesterday that there's a chance that GP2 comes back. And particularly because the Warriors have lost Kevon Looney, which I'm not sure why Looney's free agency and him departing should impact GP2, aside from the fact that, okay, maybe the Warriors just want another familiar veteran voice in the locker room, potentially. Like, aside from that, I'm not sure why it should impact, but Monty Poole essentially said that there's a greater chance now that Looney's left of Peyton returning. Bit of a weird one, considering they're different players, play different positions. One's a 6'9" big man. One's, I suppose we call GP2 the little big man, but, with his propensity to hang around the rim and cut and finish dunks and layups and whatever else. But, like, still, he's a 6'2" guard at the end of the day. He's a perimeter defender. Again, not sure why the Looney thing plays a role in him, aside, again, from bringing back a familiar face and veteran voice in the locker room who's obviously been around there for a while. So, suddenly, like, we're talking about 6-7 guards. Like, again, both Currys, Melton, Pajemski, Hield, Brogdon, again, the links there, GP2, Will Richard. That's 8 guards that I've mentioned. Now, they're not going to end up with all of those guys, but, like, that's still way too many. Like, even if they have 5 or 6 of them, that's probably too many on the roster, let alone trying to fit them into the rotation. And so what I'm thinking here is, like, if they add Seth Curry and DeAnthony Melton both to minimum contracts, is there, like, a chance here that they explore the market for Buddy Hield? I think there is. Maybe they think that, okay, we can replace, like, as good as Buddy was in the playoffs, he played big minutes, he had a big role. Part of that, I think they probably played him more than they would have ideally liked, but it actually kind of worked for them because he goes off for that 33-point huge performance in Game 7 against the Rockets, and then Game 1 against the Timberwolves, he was excellent as well. But I think they'd probably look at that and say, Buddy Hield, as good as he was in those 2 games, had far too big a role than we would have liked. Now, if we bring in Melton and Curry on minimum contracts, can we essentially replace Buddy Hield and have him as basically surplus the requirements? Now, Melton, I think, if he can return fully healthy, is just an upgrade on Buddy Hield to me because of his ability to impact on both ends of the floor. And if you can get a fully healthy DeAnthony Melton, which, again, is a big if, but if you can, then suddenly, like, he's playing more minutes than Hield in the rotation anyway. And then Seth Curry, like, his impact in the league has been diminished over recent years, going back, like, his best year was 2021, 22, I think, when he averaged over 33 minutes a game, averaged 15 points, 42.4% three-point shooting, only averaged 15.6 minutes with the Hornets last season. Again, a pretty mediocre, bad team. But he still remains, whatever you want to say about Seth Curry, he's still a Curry, and he's still one of the best shooters the league's essentially ever seen. If you look at the pure percentages of it, he shot still 45, a league-leading 45.6% from three-point range last season. Like, again, his role may have diminished over recent years, but his ability to knock down threes hasn't. Like, he still can knock down threes. The defense and other parts of his game are a bit more of an issue, and I'm sure if he comes to the Warriors, he's going to be in a more limited role capacity. Maybe he's even going to find himself out of the rotation in particular games, depending on the opposition and whatnot. But I do wonder, like, can he give you some of what Buddy Hield provides, even perhaps as a shooter? Like, Seth Curry might actually be a better shooter than Buddy Hield. In fact, like, the percentages would say so. Now, maybe not on the same volume as what we've seen in Buddy Hield, and I think Seth Curry's had his injury issues, and when you're considering trading Buddy Hield, like, you got to understand, like, this guy plays. Like, he never misses. He played all 82 games last season. And on a veteran old team where guys are going to rest and guys are going to miss games through injuries, that's important, and that's a factor to bring into this. But again, Melton and Seth, Do they think that Buddy Hield could be expendable? You could go out in the trade market and see what you could get for him. If you could look at a front court option to solidify your front court, even if you do bring Kaminga back, I think that could be a reasonable option, to be honest. And I think it would make some sense. Buddy Hield's on about $9.2 million for next season. The important thing here is he has $20 million over the 2 years beyond that, except only $3 million is guaranteed. So essentially, it's almost an expiring contract where if you're the Warriors, you can go out to a rival team and say, hey, can we give you Buddy Hield and draft assets, whatever that may be, for such? I don't even know what player it would be, but like you could basically say to the team, hey, Buddy Hield has technically got another 3 years left on his contract and 2 beyond next season, but only $3 million of that's guaranteed. So it's essentially an expiring contract. I don't know. I suppose just from a market standpoint, if you're saying, okay, where, it's a similar on a much lower scale, right? But it's like saying, okay, well, we're going to trade, if you're the Clippers, you're trading Norman Powell for John Collins and signing Bradley Beal. Well, it's like for the Warriors, can you trade Buddy Hield for a front court option and sign D'Anthony Melton and Seth Curry, right? Like this is just the marketplace, and I think that would make some sense here. So that's a watch to me, is if the Warriors sign both of those guys and they either sign Brogdon or bring back GP2. It's like, there's way too many guards. And obviously, they would have to have some sort of Kaminga insurance in place where it's like, okay, if we actually have to move on from Kaminga here, if we do have to organize a sign and trade, what are we going to get back here that can somehow replace his athleticism, his size, and his position essentially as a 3-4, right? Like, how do we replace that? And it would have to, part of the solution would have to come externally. It's why, you look at the potential trade offers as well. It's like Kaminga for Devin Carter. Devin Carter's a guard. Why do we want Devin Carter when we could just sign the Anthony Melton and Seth Curry, right? Why do we want Grayson Allen and committing ourselves to 3 years of Grayson Allen at good money? And I don't think the number in each individual season is bad for Grayson Allen. I think $16 million a year for next season or whatever, that's not great, but it's not horrific. But I don't think the Warriors want to take on 3 years of that, right? Particularly when they've got this kind of 2-year plan in place here with Steph, Jimmy, and Draymond. So, they just don't need in any of these trade packages for Kaminga. I don't think they want guards. There's if we're replacing Kaminga with someone, it has to kind of be another forward option, which is why I think Keegan Murray has often been the dream. For me, that would be ideal, but obviously not going to happen. Continuing on here, everything ties back to Kaminga, whose deal is the big ticket item of the summer for the Warriors. Beyond the contract demands, Kaminga is in search of a more guaranteed, consistent starting role and featured opportunity. Sources said that's something the Suns and Kings have pitched. Okay. So I just want to talk about the Kings and Suns here for a second in terms of Kaminga getting a starting role and featured opportunity. So he could get a starting role, no doubt, but could he actually get more featured opportunity on the Kings and Suns than he could the Warriors? So it also says here, Kaminga would be a significant part of the Warriors' rotation to open next season, and they'd need his supplementary scoring on nights when Steph Curry or Jimmy Butler rest. That's something Coach Steve Kerr has told Kaminga in recent weeks. Kerr has been one of the leading voices trying to patch things together, which again is an indication the Warriors want Kaminga back, to the point where Steve is trying to convince him. Everyone's trying to, Steve and JK, the relationship there has been a huge talking point, obviously, over the course of the last few years. Interesting that Slater, when he was on NBA Today, said it's actually an improving relationship. And that, again, as he stated here, Steve has been trying to patch things together to get Kaminga to come back. So that is very notable. But just again, to go back to the Suns and Kings point. So I think Kaminga could be the third scorer. The Warriors need a third scorer. Kaminga could be that, right? And how is he going to get more of an opportunity? So the Suns, yes, I could see why he'd get more of an option on the Suns as a third guy, potentially a second guy. But they also have Devin Booker, who's going to be taking a whole lot of the offense. And they just traded for Jalen Green, who is kind of like a guard version of JK, where he's done more in the league because he's had more opportunity. But I think they're very similar in terms of they believe they're star players who can put up big points and big numbers, and Jalen Green's done that at times. He's also been inefficient times. He was awful outside one game in the first round against the Warriors, which ultimately, probably convinced Houston that they were right to move on from him and get KD in return. So I don't know. Does Kaminga think he's going to overtake Jalen Green as a second option in Phoenix? Maybe. But otherwise he'd still be the third, right? And I think Jalen Green would try and push against that and say, hang on, I'm coming in here. I'm the second option. And Devin Booker, well, you're just paying him a near $75 million per year extension. He's obviously going to be your number one guy. No doubt about that. So if you look at that situation, I could see Kaminga getting slightly more opportunity in Phoenix, but not a hugely significant more amount that he could get at the Warriors. And then the Kings situation to me is just an absolute mess. Just an absolute mess. And you could say, oh, well, they get Kaminga, they'll make these other moves to allow Kaminga to thrive and get his opportunity. But that's still going to be difficult to pull off. Like, you've got a team that has DeMar DeRozan, likes the ball in his hands. Zach LaVine likes the ball in his hands. Dennis Schroeder, we as Warrior fans know he likes the ball in his hands. Domantas Sabonis likes the ball in his hands, posting up, right? Like, that's four guys before we even get to anyone else. Like Keegan Murray, we've spoken about, like, where does Keegan Murray get his looks when those other guys are out there? So does Kaminga really think that he's going to get better opportunity at the Kings with DeRozan, LaVine, Sabonis, and Schroeder than he would at the Warriors, where you've got Seth Curry and Jimmy Butler, who Jimmy Butler actually kind of wants to play make and not actually be a scorer? So you might even, is there a world in Kaminga comes back? Is there a world where Kaminga comes back and he actually is the second leading scorer on the Warriors next season? I think it's unlikely. I think it's really unlikely, but I don't think it's absolutely impossible. Like, he could come back and legitimately be the second leading scorer on the Warriors if Jimmy continues to play this role where it's like, hey, I kind of want to set up my teammates more than I do actually want to score myself. And obviously, given, there's going to be nights, as Slater alludes to, where Steph and Jimmy rest. So I don't know. Like, we talk about, is the grass always greener on the other side? I don't know. I know, like, the Suns and Kings are pitching this to Kaminga, but if I'm Kaminga, I'm looking at it and thinking, hang on, like, DeRozan, LaVine, Schroeder, Sabonis, like, am I really seeing my on-ball opportunities, or am I going to be posting, like, am I going to be, standing in the corner on the wing waiting for my three-point attempts when I'm not a great three-point shooter? Like, what's actually going on there? Like, is he actually really going to get that opportunity? I don't know. The Kings could say, oh, well, we're going to try and move on from these guys. DeRozan's probably the only one that I would say, yes, you could probably trade, because I think his contract is still reasonable enough. LaVine's still making over $40 million. It's going to be tough to trade. Sabonis is going to be tough to trade. Yes, he's more valuable, and I think that some teams around the league might have interest in him, but even just executing a trade that, on a guy that's making nearly $50 million is difficult in today's landscape of the first and second tax aprons. So, and then obviously you've just signed Schroeder, which to me made absolutely no sense whatsoever, but like, whatever, it's the Kings. So I don't know. I'm just not sure that, like, there's an opening here for Kaminga at these other teams that would not be available at the Warriors, particularly during the regular season. And then, like, he's thinking, well, okay, then come playoff time, Steve might just yank me and I won't get the same opportunity. Well, hang on a second. Do you think the Suns and the Kings are going to make the playoffs to begin with? Like, at least if you're the Warriors, you probably have a stronger chance of even getting to the playoffs and then being able to make a name for yourself. Like, I don't know. Would you prefer the opportunity to go out and make an impact in the playoffs, or would you prefer go to one of these other teams where they're probably not going to make the playoffs and you could try and put up big regular season numbers? But again, you could probably put up big regular season numbers for the Warriors given their need for a third scoring option and the aging trio of Steph, Jimmy, and Draymond. So I don't know. Anyway, Kaminga no longer wants to be a secondary option or a fallback plan, fearing a minimization in important moments. He scored 18, 30, 23, and 26 points in the final 4 playoff games against the Minnesota Timberwolves after Curry went down. But Kaminga was entirely out of the rotation the first round against the Houston Rockets, a painful memory that helped shape his current mindset. So he will remain on the summer search for a potential fresh start. So really, like, all these reports today essentially come down to the Warriors want to keep Kaminga, but they're having a hard time convincing him. And I'm not sure it's the convincing, I don't think, is the contract necessarily. Like, yes, it says before that, just going back up here, Kaminga hasn't found anything they presented appealing. Well, yes, maybe not from like a role standpoint, but from a contract standpoint, again, it says the Warriors believe they've offered Kaminga the highest starting salary currently on the table for him from any team. And so I don't think this is a contract situation, like an actual money financial situation. It's the role and whether the Warriors can convince Kaminga that, hey, we're going to need you, particularly in the regular season. And we're going to hopefully that then leads us to a point where you can be a big time playoff performer as well. Like, so that's the biggest thing to me. The Warriors want to keep Kaminga, but Kaminga, it's become pretty apparent here that he would probably desire a fresh start elsewhere. Again, that requires the Warriors to accept any kind of sign and trade, which at this point is just like they have no interest in with the offers that have been presented to them by the Suns and the Kings. So it's a fascinating situation. I'm still hopeful. I think from a Warrior standpoint that a deal can get done here and that Kaminga can come back and we can just see what happens at the start of next season. Because yes, like I don't think it's BS. I don't think it's BS for the Warriors to say to Kaminga, because there's a world in which you could say, oh, the Warriors will just say they're offering Kaminga this role and all this on-ball opportunity or whatever else and scoring need and whatever, and they're just saying that because they want him to sign the contract. No, like I think there's like an actual genuine real world here where the Warriors do need him. Like they do need him to a point in terms of, again, that third scoring load in terms of Steph and Jimmy being old. And I don't know. We'll just wait and see what happens. It's certainly frustrating. It's holding up the Horford, Melton, and perhaps Seth Curry piece to this and whatever else the Warriors want to do. But to me, I'm still hopeful that the Kaminga situation can be resolved in him coming back on, a 3-year, $65 to $70 million contract, something around that mark. And I'm hopeful still, and I think I'm more optimistic than most Warrior fans in terms of him actually, getting an opportunity at the start of next season to really thrive. And perhaps this could still turn around and he could have a long-term future at the Warriors. It would seem very unlikely right now at this point, but I don't know. I'm an optimistic person. And while Jonathan Kuminga is still technically part of the Warriors, kind of, he's not contracted, but he still kind of is. I'm still viewing him as a Warrior player. The Warriors he's a restricted free agent, so the Warriors have the rights to that, I suppose. And while he's still a Warrior player, I'm hopeful and I'm optimistic. And we saw what he did in the second round of the playoffs, and hopefully, again, he comes back on a significant deal, and that kind of, Steve is trying to patch things together now, and it would be up to Steve to follow through on that and actually deliver him the kind of role and opportunity that he wants. It's, we don't necessarily want to put one player in front of the whole team. I get that, but I do think there is a part of this where the Warriors are a tier below, the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Denver Nuggets, Houston Rockets in the Western Conference, and maybe their best pathway to closing that gap is to give Kaminga a really substantial role and hope that he can take off individually, and that him taking off individually can help the team take off to a new level as well. Because otherwise, like, where does the significant improvement come from? That's my question. Where does that, aside from another like trade going on here or something, like where does the significant improvement come from? I think Al Horford will be very, very helpful. Is he going to be a significant improvement to put the Warriors up into the same class as the Denver Nuggets, Houston Rockets, and obviously the Thunder are kind of in a class of their own? Probably not. Is DeAnthony Melton going to be very helpful? Yes, I think he's going to be very helpful. Does he put the Warriors up into that same, top tier? No, I don't think so. So really, I think the best way and best path of getting the Warriors up into that top echelon of teams in the West is Kaminga taking a risk on that and saying, we're just going to have to give this guy the opportunity and hope that he can take off in a way that he suddenly becomes a star player. And now we've got a completely different look on our team. And that's going to be really hard to guard. And, we're hoping that will help us, get up into a bracket where we're contending for a deep playoff spot. Anyway, I'm going to finish it up there, guys. Let me know what you think on these latest Kaminga reports, what you would like to see the Warriors do if you're happy with them looking to re-sign JK, or whether you think they should be accepting a sign and trade offer from the Suns, the Kings, or any other rival team. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel already, that would be greatly appreciated. You can follow me at POK252. That's POK252 on X/Twitter. As always, if we get any other major reports like this or anything in regard to the JK situation or anything to do with the Warriors, I'll be jumping back on another podcast or a live stream. Of course, in the meantime, you can also check out my writing content over on bluemanhoop.com. Thanks again, guys.